Today, I'm going to show you how you can recondition and restore an old lead-acid battery that no longer functions properly, and hopefully keep some of these in your pocket. Now, there are many ways that a battery can fail, and many of those ways are catastrophic or unrecoverable. However, I'm talking about a specific failure mechanism, one that usually occurs after a battery has been stored for a long period of time or has been not properly maintained. And you may find one of three symptoms, or any combination of them. One, you may find that the battery doesn't accept a charge very well from your charger. Your charger may even refuse to charge it if it's a smart charger. Two, you may find that your battery doesn't have the amperage capacity that you think it should. For example, a trolling motor may not run with the amount of power that you think it should have. Or three, the battery may not last as long as you think that it should. It may go dead very soon after you start using it. In many cases, these batteries are recoverable with a little bit of reconditioning. I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to demonstrate that technique on this battery here. It's a good candidate because this particular battery, if I wanted to purchase a new one, would cost me about $450 plus shipping because I can't get them locally. It's a very expensive battery, and I would like to see if I can recover this one. It has been stored and unused for 4 years. And it has a dead cell. And I'm going to try this method on it. It may or may not work. This battery is heavily sulfated, but I'm going to give it a try and we can at least demonstrate on this battery. If you have a battery that's more like this, a standard automotive battery, you can easily do the same procedure on this one. However, these batteries are pretty cheap. If you can get something like this for 60 bucks, your time may be better spent just buying a new battery. However, it's up to you. After all, I'd rather have 60 bucks in my pocket than at the auto store. Now, there are a lot of different battery failure modes, a lot of different battery chemistries, and a lot of different battery constructions. And this leads to a lot of different permutations. There are literally thousands of different kinds of batteries out there. And each one requires a slightly different approach to optimally recover. However, what I'm going to show you here is a generic approach that will work on just about any battery, and work pretty well. It'll simplify things and allow you to use just one approach for every application. Now, this conversation wouldn't be complete without mentioning that there are two major classifications of other approaches out there for solving this problem, and they are basically get-rich-quick schemes. They don't work. They sound good, people like to believe them, but there's nothing behind them. One is adding things to the batteries. You might hear of people saying, put an aspirin in each cell, or add Epsom salt. Believe me, if the battery manufacturers could benefit by adding Epsom salt, they would do that. They don't, and they don't for a good reason. The second method is pulse charging. There are a lot of places out there on the internet advocating pulse charging. Well, let me tell you, pulse charging does not work. So, yeah, go ahead and put your hate comments below, but it doesn't work. Pulse charging is simply an inferior method of properly reconditioning a battery. Now, there is a US patent out there on pulse charging, but let me give you a little secret here. You can patent just about anything. It doesn't have to work. So this is the battery that I'm going to demonstrate this procedure on. And I have my multimeter on the leads, and you can see that the voltage is 10.12 volts. It is obviously bad. It has a bad cell. I have tried to charge it on a standard charger, and it refuses to accept a charge. Now, if this battery has the problem that I believe it does have, it's non-recoverable, it's permanently destroyed, but I'm going to give it a try anyway. I don't want to give up on it yet, and this seems like a good opportunity to demonstrate this procedure. So the first thing that you need to do is grab your battery charger. And I don't mean a charger like this. This is a microprocessor controlled charger, and it thinks it's smarter than you are. I'm not going to comment on that, but this kind of charger is not going to work. Now, the literature even says that this charger will desulfate batteries, but it doesn't. These will never do what you really need to do to desulfate a battery. What you need is a charger like this. This is just a standard old traditional dumb charger. Now, you can use the style that comes on wheels or something like this, a little handheld one. This happens to be a 6-amp charger, and this works just great for this application. All it is a transformer and a rectifier, and that's exactly what you need. Something that has no smarts in it whatsoever. The reason that these chargers work so well for this application is because they overcharge batteries. They are notorious for that, which is why smart chargers have become the norm. But in this case, overcharging your battery is exactly what we want to do. So I'll show you how to hook this up to your battery. And this is how you'll want to hook it up. The battery charger output should go through about a 2 ohm resistor. I happen to have this 2 ohm resistor here that I'm running it through this alligator clip up to my battery. One terminal goes directly to the battery, the other one goes through this resistor and then back up to the battery. Now, I'm sure a lot of you don't just happen to have big 2 ohm resistors laying around, and if you don't, you can hook your charger directly up to your battery. That will boil off a lot of the electrolyte inside. However, if it's a standard flooded battery, you can just pop the caps off and refill them, so that's not really a problem. In this case, it's an AGM battery, it's sealed. I can't get to the electrolyte, so I want to preserve as much of it as I can. Now, if you have a sealed battery that you can't service and you don't have a resistor, go ahead and just hook the charger up to it. I mean, what are you going to lose, right? The battery's already bad, but I have this, so I'm going to put it in circuit. So, this is how you hook it up, and now we'll turn the charger on. And I plugged the charger in, so it should be going. But this meter here isn't very accurate, so for the purposes of demonstration, I put this clamp meter on the circuit to see how much current is going into the battery, and we have almost zero current, about 0.1 amps going into our battery. And that's pretty typical of a sulfated battery. This particular battery, I'm pretty sure, has a bad cell, one that has been reformed in the opposite polarity that it should be. I'm not going to go into details on that, but I have my doubts that it's recoverable. We're going to give it a try. Now, what you'll see on most batteries that have sulfation problems like this one does is that the current will start out at a very low level, particularly if you have a lead calcium battery. It will start out at a very, very low level and won't accept charge. However, if you keep it on this setup for a day or two, or maybe 3 weeks, this current will slowly creep up. And it should go up to an amp, maybe even 2 amps, and then fall after a while again. Now, I don't know if this battery is recoverable or not, but I'm going to leave it on this setup and see what happens. Now, if you don't happen to have a resistor laying around, you can also use something like this, standard automotive light. That will work just fine also as a current limiting device. But regardless, the first step is to hook your battery up to one of these old standard dumb chargers and wait. Step 2 is to monitor the charge current. Eventually, this current will start creeping its way up to 1 or 2 amps, and when it does start creeping up, make sure to keep track of the electrolyte level in your battery. Don't fill it all the way, but make sure that the plates are fully covered, as some of that will boil away during this process. And it may take up to a month for this current to start rising and to stabilize. If it takes more than a month, turn your battery in for a core charge. It's not coming back. Step 3 is to wait until the charge current stabilizes at whatever current it stabilizes at. It might be 1, 2, 3, 4 amps. Depending on how you have your charge set up. And once it stabilizes, leave it on the charger for an additional 48 hours, and then disconnect the charger. So I'll disconnect the charger from the battery, and step 4 is to wait 24 hours with the battery disconnected and open circuit. And then take your digital multimeter, whichever kind you have. This is just a $3 meter from Harbor Freight, and check the voltage level of your battery. Now, I have not had this connected long enough to this battery, just 1 day, so it hasn't recovered yet. But after 24 hours of being disconnected, this voltage should still be at 12.5 volts or above. If it is not, then hook your charger back up and wait 48 hours more, and repeat. Eventually, the battery should hold a 12.5 volt or better level after sitting for 24 hours disconnected. If you repeat this process for a week or two and it never maintains a 12.5 volt level, then turn your battery in for a core charge. It's not going to be coming back. After you've completed step 4 and verified that your battery does hold a voltage, you can set this setup aside. You won't be needing that old charger anymore. And it's time to move on to step 5. Now, I want to mention what we have actually done in step 4 leading up to this. What we've done is that we've made sure that the bad cell or bad cells in this battery are desulfated to the extent that they are now able to pass current. This battery is not yet restored. However, we can move on to step 5. And step 5 is cycling the battery. Now the reason that cycling a battery like this is necessary is because the majority of that sulfation is irreversible. You will never get it back. The only way to get it back is to reprocess the lead and get a new battery. So we have to work around that. And cycling the battery makes the plates inside expand and contract every time it's cycled, and this does two things for you. One, in a flooded battery, a lot of that sulfated material falls to the bottom of the cell and exposes good lead. Or in a battery like this, where it can't migrate, the expansion and contraction causes that outer exterior that's sulfated to crack and allow the current to go in to the plates inside the battery. So you do need to cycle a battery to get its full capacity back. Now there's a couple different ways you can do that. If this is a battery in your car, you can just turn the headlights on. That will cycle the battery. On this battery, I'm going to use a different approach. I have here a little 400 watt power inverter. You can pick these up for 30 bucks or so just about anywhere, and I'm going to use this to load it down. Now what you want to do when you cycle this battery is to put it under approximately a 20 amp load. And you can use anything you want for a load. You can use a fan or just look at the nameplate and see how many watts it draws. I'm going to look at the nameplate on these light bulbs because that's easy. And I'm just going to put on 200 watts of light bulbs onto my inverter here. And what you want to do is time how long it takes for the battery voltage at these terminals to fall to 11 volts. And write that value down. So I'll hook my inverter up, positive to positive, negative to negative. Plug in my 200 watts worth of incandescent light bulbs because 200 watts is about 20 amps, which is about what we want. The exact number isn't all that critical, but 20 amps is a good number. And turn it on. And then take whatever device you have and time it. With your multimeter, check at the battery terminals and see how long it takes for the battery voltage to drop to 11.0 volts. Now the odds are the first time you do this, the battery won't last very long. Don't worry, that's normal. So just take your charger, whatever charger you choose to use to normally charge batteries, and hook that up to your battery and give it a full charge. Let it wait overnight or so, and repeat the process. Drain the battery again at approximately 20 amps, and write down how long it takes for the voltage at these terminals to drop to 11 volts. What you should see if this battery is recovering is that every time you do this, the time will increase, and you'll get more and more capacity out of this battery every time. At some point after 5 cycles or so, the capacity will stop increasing or will increase at a very low rate. At that point, you're done. You can take your battery out of the setup, put it back into service, and it should give you a little bit more life. It will never again be like it was when it was new. This does not recover anything fully, it's impossible to do that, but it does make it serviceable once again. And there you have it. Those are the 5 steps to properly recondition a lead-acid battery, with no snake oil, no pulse charging, and no additives. It takes a lot of time, but if you want to recondition a battery, this is how you do it. Now, there are a lot of different variants out there on how to do this process. People may disagree about what the charge current should be, or the amount of time to wait between each step, or how many times you need to cycle the battery. A lot of these details are debatable, and this is just my method of doing it. But as long as you follow this basic process, and you can make your own changes along the way, you should be successful in reconditioning most batteries. And before I go, I want to mention one more thing. This entire process is totally unnecessary if you take care of your batteries. Now, I realize that's not always practical, and this may still happen at some point, but if you keep batteries fully charged, this will never happen to them. An old worn-out battery cannot be reconditioned. This is just for what they refer to as a sulfated battery. In any case, I hope this video helps you, and thanks for watching.